how about the numerology and the astrology for April 20th, 2020? Thank you for tuning in. I hope everybody is still being home and being still and enjoying the beautiful spring weather and doing all the projects around the house that you have wanted to do. I know that it's amazing how busy I can be with all of these little projects, and I'm like, wow, pretty amazing. So anyway, we are coming into an astrologically intense cycle. I've talked about it repeatedly, and so I'm just kind of trying to brace everybody and give everybody the heads up and the warning about how this is going to work and everything. So just know that June and July is kind of this critical tilting point, and as we get further and further into the astrology, it kind of starts to stress it a little bit more and more and more in the process. So be prepared, be braced, be positive. Today, right now, actually at 11 o'clock, no matter where you are, so it is, right now it's 10:32 my time in California, the day before on Sunday, so this numerology and astrology is for Monday. But if you happen to see this and you're a day early, know that at 11 o'clock there's a world meditation. I am joining in. I hope all of you will join in too, because we need as much positive energy as we possibly can to shape this new world that we want. Okay, so starting with the numerology. If you add up all the numbers for 2020, you get the number 10. And the 10 is the number of radiance and boldness and courage. It's a number of vitality. It's a number of the entrepreneur. It's the number where you are a warrior, and I would like everybody to be a warrior of light and a warrior of consciousness and a warrior of positive energy, to kind of find that strength that is inside of you and to not let the 10 collapse down into a 1, which is a victim. You're not a victim. We're all at choice here, one way or the other, including if you want to choose to not be cloistered and in your house and you want to go out, that becomes your choice too. We are all free beings, but know that sometimes your actions have consequences for others. And so my game in life is to do my very best to not create more karma. I feel like we all have enough as it is, and so this is about releasing karma, not adding to karma because of our spiritual arrogance or our attitude or our ego. There you go. Now, there's a willingness to change right now because you're in a 10-1 new beginning cycle, and you have an opportunity to step into your power, and that's really essential because in change is where you actually grow in life, and you have to make changes to sustain growth. You can't just do one little change and expect everything to continue to keep changing. You have to keep choosing over and over again to change, which is why in the numerology, it's like we go, 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's all these opportunities again and again and again to change. And so I always like to catch the wave. So the wave today is about standing up, standing in your power, maybe redefining power, redefining what is important to you. So all change is difficult at the beginning. And if you realize that, then you don't panic. I mean, I see so many people that say, oh, everything should be effortless and easy. And I go, oftentimes the universe gives you an incentive to start something and it seems effortless and easy, and then the moment you get into it, it becomes really hard, and it takes a lot of sustained power, which is the number 10, to actually continue to make that happen and not collapse into the victim. And it's like, oh, that's too hard, I don't want to do it now kind of thing. So I can't tell you how many people say to me, oh, I'm going to be a famous musician. I'm like, awesome. Like, what instrument do you play? Oh, I don't play an instrument. Okay, so do you sing? No, don't sing. Okay, so do you write music? No, don't write music, but I'm going to be a famous musician. I'm like, okay, power is about sustaining an intention or an idea. And as you sustain an intention and an idea, you actually build into power and you create more power and you expand your aura outward and you have more and more energy from which to work with because you're kind of collecting energy as you go. So the realization in this moment is that we are in for big changes that are going to happen in this world, for all of us and everything that's alive in this world to recover, survive, and thrive. And that awareness is going to continue to seep into our psyche and allow us the fortitude to change our ways. But it's not about nature changing her ways. It's about us waking up to the realization that our quest for power, fame, and wealth has been, up till now, a destructive force in this world. And it does not have to be that. You can have power, but why not use that power to help nature and protect it? You could be known as a savior of animals and ecosystems. That would be incredibly powerful. And it would be wonderful. And you can have fame, but you can make it somehow different. You know, how would it be if you were known for doing something that is good and famous for doing something that's good rather than for doing something for your ego's gratification? And you can have wealth, but when you realize that you can have a wealth of love, compassion, time, and care, then suddenly the stuff, the material world stuff means much less. And so you're kind of being asked to redefine what is your power and influence in the world, and then use that power consciously. The astrology today. Monday is best to accomplish important tasks earlier rather than later because of the astrology. And so at the end of the day, the sun is challenging Saturn, and that means that your stamina and drive are going to decrease, and you may want to go home and just crawl into bed and be done with this day, and that's okay too. The moon goes into Aries in the middle of the night, and for the next few days, you're going to have some extra energy to give you some confidence and maybe start a new project, tackle something more difficult. The moon is going to sextile Saturn in Aquarius, and that should inspire you to get organized and to be deliberate in your actions, because it's one thing to have the idea, but then it's another thing to actually be the person that is the community organizer that organizes all the pieces together to make them happen. The sun is going to sextile the true north node of the moon, and it gives you the energy to grow and improve in some very critical ways. The sun squares Saturn early tomorrow, so usually you can feel such an aspect coming into the space the day before, and new ideas are going to start to trickle in while you make goals for a new reality, and know that you're going to face obstacles to get there, and just stay realistic and practical in your approach. And know that a team effort might be worth a lot to help you keep things moving. So sometimes it's just better to have a team and people as sounding boards to bounce ideas off of one way or the other. The quote today is actually borrowed from the movie The Revolutionary Road, which I was watching last night. And it was great because one of the characters says, "No one forgets the truth. They just get better at lying." I just loved that. I mean, I was just like, boy, is that not the truth or what? No one forgets the truth. They just get better at lying. Thank you, the writers, for The Revolutionary Road. Okay, another Peru story. We're going to talk about the jungle. And one of my Peru trips, I went to the Amazon rainforest on the Momon River, which is a tributary to the Amazon. And we were headed to a jungle lodge that's built on the side of the river, about 3 hours by boat into the jungle away from Iquitos. And it was this picturesque, rustic lodge made out of, wood and bamboo and all this kind of stuff. And it was situated on the river, and it was near a village. Now, know that going to such areas that are really remote requires you to make sure that you get all, and I do mean all, your travel shots and malaria pills. And sure enough, we get there only to realize that the entire village is down with malaria, which is not a good sign. Now, I will point out here that for all my wild and woolly traveling that I've done, and I've done a lot of it, I am the really touchy, get sick person. So I constantly get sick from the local bugs and diseases of an area. And I have a gene abnormality that makes me prone to getting any respiratory illnesses, and I have also a really touchy gut. And I have learned over time to never leave on a long trip without all my potential pills to help my gut and my lungs. But hearing this news put me on edge, and I recognized that I would probably stay inside, because in the evenings and early morning when those mosquitoes are out is really one of the more dangerous periods, right? So we get to the lodge, and they tell us to make sure that we lock our doors at night, because the monkeys like to run around and will put their fingers under the doors and pull really hard many times to see if it is locked. And you do not want a monkey loose in your room, because they will destroy the room. Well, that was clear, and I made a mental note to myself, Suzanne, keep the door locked. And sure enough, the very first night, and truly every night afterwards, somewhere in the pitch black darkness of the jungle, you would be sound asleep, and suddenly there would be this loud wampa, 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 as the monkeys tested the door. Sort of a terrifying sound when it wakes you up in the middle of the night in a pitch dark jungle lodge. The first night, I also noticed that on the outside of the bathroom door, there was a lock, and I thought that was a bit odd and made a mental note of it, but I did not think to close and lock it as I went to sleep, because it's pitch dark and you're going to be wandering, trying to get to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and you're going to stumble over things, and so I didn't want to stumble into the door, so I just basically, didn't lock it. Now, I find that angels and guides try to make you take notice of things to give you a heads up. But as in many moments, I noticed it, but I did not take heed of the hint. So in the middle of the night, I hear this scratching sound. Tick, 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 and then silence. Scritch, scritch, scritch. And something was getting closer and closer to me. Now, there was this small edge that was around the edge of the room, and it was kind of right at like the 3 feet mark. And I felt something right on top of me. And I opened my eyes, and here was this huge rat. I mean, a rat about 2 feet long with red eyes was looking at me. And I sat up sharply, and it ran back into the bathroom faster than you think anything can move. And I hear it plop itself into the toilet and was gone. Ugh! Right? I turn on the light, and I rush over to see these little wet paw prints leaving the toilet and going back into the toilet, and now I know why the lock was on the outside of the bathroom. Welcome to the Jungle Lodge. The next day, I decided to explore a bit, and I discovered that all the bathroom plumbing did not go to a septic system, but was washed out into an area away from the lodge. Yeah, stinky. And the pipes were open to the jungle, and they were just the right size for a rat to climb up. Now, fortunately, the lodge was built for tourists, and there were a lot of screened-in areas all over, so you could be outside and inside at the same time, and it was wonderful to see the jungle animals and the small marmosets on the heads and the hair of the natives. It was really cool. And one night we were all sitting around the fireplace inside the screened-in area chatting, and there were 2 men that were hired by the lodge that were responsible for us if we needed anything. And one of the men in my group, a large man over 6 feet tall, which was very tall to those natives because they're tiny, got up to go to the bathroom. And the 2 locals had fallen asleep in boredom because we're all talking in English and they can't understand what we're saying. And so as this man walks past them, they suddenly wake up, scream, and run out the door. And my client is startled, and we all look in his direction. And he shrugs his shoulders and goes to the bathroom and comes back. But the 2 villagers did not come back. And the next morning, all the workers at the lodge were pointing at my client, and they were saying, that's the one over there, that's the one, right? And they all stood a fair distance from him, and they would not get close to him at all. And even the women wouldn't get close to him, and he could not help but notice. And so we took him to the shaman and asked the shaman, did the shaman know what was going on? And the shaman smiled, and he said, well, when they woke up, what they saw, and these people are very intuitive and have great sight because, that they don't have it bred out of them. They're supposed to be noticing all these things on the subtle energy and on the shamanic level, right? So, but what they saw was my client as a bloodied Roman warrior standing over them in full armor, a shield, and a sword. And they thought he was going to kill them, and that's why they ran away. And they believed he was a reincarnated, dangerous warrior from Rome. I have to believe them. They have an ability that Westerners do not possess, or we lose as we get older. And there are cultures that others have as skills and tools to translate subtle energy very differently than us. And every culture has ways that access these energies and try to work with them. I hold that all cultures have great wisdoms that they hold as truths. And those wisdoms give you awareness into the inner workings of life. And you have to learn to be open to those messages and learn to take in what is offered and allow the sharing of that information to inform you about things that you perhaps are unaware. This gentle, big, tall man was one of my clients, and he had always noticed that he had this very aggressive and violent place in his psyche, and he had learned to repress it and suppress it, knowing that it was totally not appropriate to let it out. And he also recognized that the suppression of that part was so intense that it actually had caused a type of lifelong depression. And he believed that he carried a tremendous amount of karma in this life, and that he was doing many spiritual practices to try to work out of that karma. So when I spoke to him 10 years after that trip, he said that he was still wrestling with that warrior inside, and that the trip had helped him recognize that he needed to integrate this aspect, and that this lifetime he needed to learn to love that part of himself, and it was essential for his healing and transformation in this life. So I love that experience and that belief system that he got, because I think it is really important that no part of ourself may be left behind, that we go on these spiritual journeys and we put ourselves in unusual situations, because when we do that and we break ourselves out of our routines and out of our habits, then we actually have more awareness. So more awareness comes in. And I have a joke that I have about myself that I learned, that it's like, if I want to have a spiritual experience, just put myself in a very new place. You know, if I'm used to being inside, go outside. If I'm used to doing one type of spiritual practice, go try a completely different spiritual practice. Just put yourself at the edge of discomfort. And when you do that, it's amazing what will start to pop and what will start to show up. Okay, so I think everyone right now is on their edge of discomfort in the world. And so, you know, let's try to enjoy that and use it as a spiritual tool for our awakening. Just simply notice what you're feeling and move into that feeling, no matter what that feeling is. So don't move away from the feeling. Keep moving towards it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. You guys have a good day. Bye.